The chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of empty space, held together by force fields that shimmered like oil on water. Inside, representatives from 847 alien species gathered in a circle that seemed to have no end. At the center stood Ambassador Minho Choi, alone. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded against his ribs. Around him, creatures of every imaginable form whispered in languages that his translator could barely process. The insectoid Vren clicked their mandibles in what he knew was disgust. The Althari, beings made of living crystal, pulsed with cold blue light. The aquatic Dolmec floated in their containment spheres, their tentacles writhing with agitation. "The vote is final," declared the council speaker, a towering figure whose species had no name humans could pronounce. "Humanity is deemed incompatible with galactic civilization. You have 1 solar cycle to withdraw all colonies and return to your home system. After that, the barrier will be activated. You will be sealed inside, forever." Minho tried one last time. His voice echoed across the vast chamber. "We have done nothing to warrant this. Our conflicts were internal. Our expansion followed all established protocols. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves." The Vren Queen spoke next, her voice like grinding metal. "Your species makes war on itself with weapons that could crack planets. You consume resources at rates that threaten entire ecosystems. Your art glorifies violence. Your history is written in blood. We cannot allow such madness to spread among the stars. Every species here has a violent past," Minho said. His desperation was showing now, and he hated it. The Dolmec waged war for 3,000 years before achieving peace. The Vren consumed 17 planets before learning conservation. Why are we different? The Althari Prime Consciousness responded, its voice a chorus of chimes. "Because you have not learned. Because you celebrate your violence. Because even now, standing before us, you think of yourselves as warriors rather than philosophers. We see it in your thoughts, human. You dream of conquest, even as you speak of peace." Minho had no answer to that. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps humanity carried something dark inside them that other species had purged from their nature. But that did not make this sentence just. Light years away, Admiral Jiwan Park stood on the bridge of the UHNS Indomitable, humanity's largest warship. Through the viewport, she watched the Council fleet take positions around Earth. There were thousands of ships, each one belonging to a different species, each one pointed at her home world like a loaded gun. "Ma'am, we could fight," her tactical officer said quietly. "Our projections show we could take down maybe 30% of their forces before they glass every city on Earth and every colony we've ever built," Jiwan finished. "No. We're not giving them an excuse to exterminate us. If we have to retreat, we retreat with our heads high and our people alive." She opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Park. Stand down all weapons. Begin evacuation protocols. We're going home." On the colony world of New Busan, Captain Yuna Lee oversaw the loading of the last transport ships. Families crowded the docks, carrying whatever they could fit in their arms. Children cried. Adults stood in silent shock. They had built entire cities here over 3 generations. Now they had 72 hours to abandon everything. "Captain, we can't fit everyone," her logistics officer reported. "We need at least another week." "We don't have another week," Yuna said. She pulled up the priority list, her stomach turning as she looked at the numbers. Medical personnel and children first, then engineers and scientists, then everyone else by lottery. And the infrastructure, the farms, the factories. "Burn it," Yuna said flatly. "I won't give them the satisfaction of using what we built." Across 23 colony worlds, the same scene played out. Humanity gathered its children, its knowledge, its dreams, and fled back to the Sol system like beaten dogs. The council watched with what might have been satisfaction, though it was hard to tell with species so alien. The last human ship crossed into Sol system space on the final day of the deadline. Behind them, the council activated the barrier. It appeared as a sphere of absolute darkness surrounding the entire system. No light got in, no light got out. Faster-than-light travel simply stopped working at its edge. Humanity was alone. On Earth, in the newly built Emergency Assembly Hall, leaders from every nation and colony gathered. The mood was dark. Some called for revenge, some called for acceptance, some simply wept. Minho Choi stood before them all. He had failed in his mission, but he was not done speaking. They think we'll die here. They think isolation will break us. They're wrong. We have everything we need in this system. We have each other. We have our minds. We have our will to survive. And one day, we will break this barrier. One day, we will return to the stars. And when we do, the galaxy will remember the name of humanity. The applause was hesitant at first, then grew into a roar. They did not know it then, but those words would echo for 500 years. 500 years changed everything. The Galactic Council went about its business, confident that the human problem had been solved. They established new trade routes. They mediated minor conflicts between species. They grew comfortable and soft, as all bureaucracies do when left unchallenged for too long. The name humanity became a cautionary tale, a story told to young aliens about what happens to species that cannot control their violent nature. Inside the barrier, humanity was anything but cautionary. Dr. Hyun Kim worked in a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Europa, Jupiter's ice moon. She had spent 40 years of her life studying the barrier, and she finally understood it. The quantum field that imprisoned humanity was not impenetrable. It was simply very, very complex, and complexity could be unraveled by those patient enough to do the work. "We've been thinking about this wrong," she told her research team. "The Council uses faster-than-light travel by riding naturally occurring quantum tunnels through space. They didn't create those tunnels. They just found them and learned to use them. But we can create our own tunnels. We can fold space itself without needing their highways." Her assistant, a young physicist named Kenji, looked skeptical. "That would require energy outputs we can't possibly generate." "Not if we use dimensional layering," Hyun said. She pulled up her calculations on the holographic display. "Instead of punching through space, we slip between layers of reality. It takes less energy, but requires precise mathematical control. We'd need computers far beyond what we currently have." "Then we build them," Kenji said simply. And they did. Across the Sol system, humanity built. The moon became a shipyard, its low gravity perfect for assembling massive vessels in orbit. Mars was transformed into a research hub, its surface dotted with laboratories and test facilities. Venus's thick atmosphere was mined for resources. The asteroid belt was picked clean and reassembled into hundreds of space stations. Engineer Somin Kang led the neural interface project from a station orbiting Saturn. She believed that human intuition combined with computer processing could create something greater than either alone. Her first successful test subject was a volunteer pilot named Ji-won, a descendant of the famous Admiral Park. "How does it feel?" Somin asked as the young pilot sat in the neural chair, her brain directly connected to a small fighter craft. "Like the ship is my body," Ji-won whispered. Her eyes were closed, but she could see through the ship's sensors. "I can feel the engines like muscles, the weapons like fingers. This is incredible." The neural interface was refined over decades. Eventually, human pilots could control entire fleets with their thoughts, reacting faster than any alien computer system. It gave humanity an edge they would desperately need. General Dae Hyun-yoon never forgot the humiliation of the exile. He was only 10 years old when his family fled their colony world, but the memory of running away burned in his mind forever. As an adult, He rose through the ranks of Earth's unified military, and he had a vision. The Council thinks in terms of large fleets and territorial control, he told his officers at the Strategic Command Center. They fight wars the way they've always fought them, with established tactics and predictable strategies. We won't beat them by being bigger. We'll beat them by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless when necessary. His Foundation protocol became the backbone of human military doctrine. Every soldier trained in guerrilla warfare, in asymmetric tactics, in the art of winning battles against superior numbers. Every ship was designed to hit hard and disappear. Every strategy assumed the enemy would be larger, but slower to adapt. On Earth, the population exploded. With all of humanity confined to one system, the focus turned inward. 50 billion people now called Sol System home. They lived on Earth, Luna, Mars, in rotating habitats, and underground cities on the moons of gas giants. Every human alive knew the story of the exile. Every child grew up learning that the galaxy had rejected them. It created a unity that humanity had never known before. Old national boundaries meant nothing. Race, religion, language, all the things that once divided humanity became cherished diversity within a single identity. They were human. That was enough. In the council chambers, now 5 centuries after the barrier's activation, a junior aide brought concerning news to the current speaker. Sir, our long-range sensors detected unusual energy readings from the Sol system barrier. The speaker, a Dalmec who had held the position for 60 years, barely looked up from his reports. Define unusual. Fluctuations in the quantum field, small ones but regular, like something is testing it from inside. Impossible. The humans don't have the technology to even detect the barrier, let alone manipulate it. It's probably natural decay. The field is 500 years old after all. Have a maintenance ship reinforce it in the next cycle. The aide bowed and left. The report was filed and forgotten. It was a mistake the council would regret. Back in her laboratory on Europa, Dr. Hyun Kim smiled at her readings. The barrier was responding exactly as her calculations predicted. She was now 87 years old, kept alive by the advanced medical technology humanity had developed during isolation. She would live to see her work completed. Somin, Daehyun, she said into her communication device. Tell command that we can bring down the barrier. We can do it whenever they're ready. On Earth, in the Grand Assembly Hall that now governed all of humanity, the leaders gathered to make a decision. They had spent 500 years preparing for this moment. They had the technology. They had the ships. They had the will. Emperor Junho Han, elected as humanity's single representative voice, stood before the assembly. His title was new, created for this new era of humanity. He was not a dictator, but a symbol of their unity. The question before us is simple, he said. Do we ask permission to return to the galaxy, or do we take our place among the stars by right of our strength and our will to survive? The vote was unanimous. Humanity would bow to no one ever again. Colonel Jisoo Han sat in the cockpit of the Shadow, humanity's first stealth reconnaissance vessel. She was about to do something no human had done in 500 years. Leave the Sol system. Systems check complete, she reported to command. Dimensional drive is online. Stealth field holding steady. I'm ready. Proceed when ready, Colonel, came the reply from Earth. Good luck. Jisoo engaged the drive. The ship shuddered, and then reality seemed to bend around her. The barrier that had imprisoned humanity for 5 centuries simply ceased to exist as she slipped between dimensions. For a fraction of a second, she existed in a layer of space where the barrier had never been built. Then she was through. The stars looked different from the outside. Brighter somehow, more real. Jisoo allowed herself a moment of wonder before getting to work. Her mission was simple: scout the nearest systems and gather intelligence on the current state of the galaxy. What she found shocked her. The Council outposts she encountered used technology identical to what humanity remembered from 500 years ago. Their ships moved on the same old quantum highways. Their weapons operated on the same principles. Their communication systems were laughably easy to intercept. In 6 months of silent observation, Jisoo mapped 36 systems. She watched Council patrols fly predictable routes. She saw trading ships move at speeds humanity had surpassed centuries ago. She infiltrated their networks and downloaded their entire historical database. The galaxy had not moved forward. It had stood completely still. When she returned to Sol System, slipping back through the weakening barrier that Dr. Hyun Kim's team was carefully dismantling from within, Jisoo carried data that would change everything. She presented her findings to Imperial Command in a briefing that lasted 6 hours. Commander Taejin Oh studied the tactical reports with growing amazement. They're using the same fleet formations we remember, the same weapons platforms. Even their flagship designs haven't changed. The Council controls all advanced technology, Jisoo explained. No species is allowed to develop beyond strict limits. They've maintained peace by preventing progress. While we were forced to innovate or die, they chose stagnation. Emperor Junho Han reviewed the data personally. The implications were clear and terrifying. Humanity now possessed overwhelming technological superiority. They could return to the galaxy not as refugees begging for acceptance, but as conquerors. We need to be very careful about how we use this advantage, he said slowly. We're not the monsters the Council claimed we were, but we must ensure they never cage us again. Then we demonstrate strength, General Daehyun-yoon said. We show them that humanity cannot be threatened, cannot be contained, and will not tolerate being treated as inferiors, but we do it with precision, not brutality. The plan came together over 6 months. Operation Reclamation would be humanity's announcement to the galaxy. They would not ask permission. They would not negotiate from weakness. They would return as equals, whether the Council liked it or not. On the chosen day, Dr. Hyun Kim entered the final command sequence. The barrier that had surrounded Sol System for 5 centuries collapsed. It didn't explode or shatter. It simply stopped existing, as if someone had turned off a light switch. The Council's monitoring stations detected the collapse immediately. Alarms blared in chambers across a dozen worlds. By the time the Council could convene an emergency session, it was already too late. 1,000 human ships poured through the gap where the barrier had been. They moved faster than anything the Council had ever seen, slipping in and out of normal space like ghosts. Their stealth technology made them invisible to standard sensors. Their weapons operated on principles the Council's scientists couldn't begin to understand. The first target was the Vren Hive worlds, the species that had been most vocal about humanity's exile. Fleet Admiral Yoonji Kwon commanded the assault personally. Her orders were clear: demonstrate overwhelming force, minimize casualties, and accept surrender the moment it was offered. The Vren Defense Fleet mobilized to meet the human threat. 3,000 ships, the pride of the Hive, moved into defensive formation around their core worlds. Against a Council species, it would have been an impenetrable wall of firepower. Against humanity, it lasted 4 hours. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before the Vren could return fire. Dimensional drives allowed them to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Neural interface pilots reacted faster than any Vren gunner. Advanced targeting systems ensured every shot counted. When Vren ships exploded, their crews were given time to evacuate. Human rescue vessels appeared to collect escape pods, even in the middle of battle. It was a mercy the Vren didn't understand and certainly hadn't expected. The Hive Queen herself witnessed her fleet being systematically dismantled. She had ruled for 200 years and never seen anything like this. When Admiral Yoonji offered terms of surrender, the Queen accepted immediately. You will withdraw all military forces from human territory, Yunji stated. You will acknowledge our right to exist among the stars. You will never again threaten Earth or any human world. In exchange, we will not occupy your worlds, and we will offer protection against any species that might attack you in your weakened state. The Hive Queen clicked her mandibles in what might have been respect, or might have been fear. We accept. But I must know. How did you become so powerful? You were primitives when we sealed you away. You gave us 500 years of motivation, Yunji replied simply, and you underestimated what humans can do when we're angry and afraid. News of the Vren defeat spread through the council like wildfire. Panic followed. If the Vren Hive, one of the council's military powers, could fall so quickly, what hope did anyone else have? Some species called for immediate military action. A united front to crush humanity before they grew too powerful. Others urged negotiation. A few quietly began preparing to switch sides, recognizing that the balance of power in the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. In the council chambers, the speaker called for order amidst the chaos. We must respond decisively. The humans cannot be allowed to... His words were interrupted by a holographic transmission that appeared in the center of the chamber. Emperor Junho Han's image materialized, life-sized and clear. Members of the Galactic Council, he said calmly, humanity has returned. We seek neither your permission nor your approval. We will reclaim our place among the stars, resist, and you will face the same fate as the Vren. Negotiate, and we can build a better galaxy together. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, every species present understood that the galaxy had changed forever. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so loud. 847 species all shouting at once created a noise that transcended language. The translators gave up trying to process it all and simply emitted a constant drone of overlapping voices. The speaker slammed his energy staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed like thunder, finally bringing silence. Order, he commanded. We must have order. The Dolmec ambassador floated forward in his containment sphere. The humans have violated the terms of their confinement. They have attacked a council member state. This is an act of war. They didn't attack, the Althari representative chimed, her crystalline body pulsing with agitation. They dismantled the Vren fleet with surgical precision. Their casualties were minimal. They even rescued survivors. This wasn't war. This was a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Demanded a representative from the reptilian Krell Dominion. Of superiority, the Althari replied quietly. Complete and total technological superiority. The chamber erupted again. Half the species refused to believe it. The other half were already calculating their odds of survival if humanity turned its attention toward them. Fleet Admiral Yunji Quan was already 3 systems away from Vren space when the Council finally decided on a response. She reviewed the intercepted communications with her staff aboard the flagship Awakening. They're forming a defense coalition, Commander Taejin O reported. 47 species have pledged ships. They're massing at the Kepler Junction. Intelligence suggests over 10,000 vessels. Yunji studied the tactical display. The Kepler Junction was a strategic choke point, a cluster of quantum highways that connected dozens of major systems. Controlling it would give humanity access to a quarter of the galaxy. They're scared, she said. That's why they're gathering in one place. They think numbers will protect them. They're wrong, but I understand the logic. We could go around, Taijin suggested. Bypass the junction entirely using our dimensional drives. No, Yunji said firmly. They've drawn a line. If we avoid it, they'll think we're afraid. We need to meet them head-on and break their will to resist, but we do it smart. While the Council gathered its forces, humanity extended an olive branch to the few species that had opposed the original exile. The Althari Concordat had voted against sealing humanity away, and they had paid for it politically for 5 centuries. Envoy Taiyang Xin arrived at the Althari homeworld aboard a vessel that seemed to be made of liquid light. The Althari had never seen anything like it. When Taiyang stepped out, he wore the formal diplomatic robes of Earth, and he bowed deeply. The Althari Prime Consciousness manifested before him, a collective of thousands of crystalline beings speaking with one voice. "Why do you come here, human? We cannot help you against the Council. We are weak." "We don't need your help," Taiyang said gently. "We come to offer ours. You voted to free us when others wanted us imprisoned. We haven't forgotten. We're prepared to share our technology, our protection, and our friendship. All we ask is that you acknowledge what the Council did was wrong." The Prime Consciousness pulsed with colors that indicated deep thought. "And if we refuse? Then we leave you in peace and ask nothing further. We're not here to threaten you. We're here to honor those who showed us kindness when no one else would." The Althari had lived for millennia. They understood sincerity when they encountered it. After 3 days of consideration, the Prime Consciousness accepted humanity's offer. They became the first non-human species to join what would eventually become the new Galactic Order. At the Kepler Junction, the Council's coalition fleet waited. 10,000 ships from 47 species, all arranged in the traditional defensive formation that had protected Council space for 10,000 years. It was an impressive sight, a wall of metal and energy that stretched across 3 light minutes of space. Vice Admiral Heiyun Bei commanded the human forces assigned to the Kepler Junction. She had only 300 ships, outnumbered more than 30 to 1. But she had studied the Council's tactics for years, and she knew their weakness. "They're going to try to funnel us into a kill zone," she told her captains over the neural network. "They'll use their numbers to create overlapping fields of fire. Against a conventional force, it would work perfectly. Against us, it's suicide." The Battle of Kepler Junction lasted 3 days, and it became the stuff of legend. Human ships didn't approach in a straight line. They used dimensional drives to appear throughout the battlefield simultaneously, attacking from angles the Council fleet couldn't defend. When the enemy concentrated fire, the human ships simply vanished and reappeared elsewhere. Neural-linked pilots reacted in milliseconds, their ships moving like extensions of their own bodies. They wove through enemy formations, targeting engines and weapons with precise shots that disabled rather than destroyed. The goal wasn't to kill. It was to demonstrate that killing would be easy if humanity chose it. The Council commanders tried everything. They split their fleet into smaller groups. They attempted to predict human movements. They even tried ramming attacks in desperation. Nothing worked. The humans were always one step ahead, always faster, always more precise. On the second day, a Dolmec battleship tried to self-destruct in the middle of a human formation, hoping to take some enemy ships with it. Human rescue teams materialized, evacuated the entire crew in under 6 minutes, and then towed the ship to a safe distance before it exploded. The rescued Dolmec crew was returned unharmed with a simple message: "We're not here to kill you." By the 3rd day, the Council fleet was in complete disarray. Over 8,000 ships were disabled, their crews evacuated, and waiting in human-provided life support pods. The remaining vessels were scattered and demoralized. Vice Admiral Heiyun transmitted to all remaining Council ships: "This battle is over. You fought bravely, but you cannot win. Stand down, and we will ensure your safe return home. Continue fighting, and we will be forced to take more aggressive action. Choose." Within an hour, every Council ship had surrendered. The victory at Kepler Junction broke the Council's will to resist. Species that had pledged to fight reconsidered. The Dolmec Empire, which had refused all negotiation, suddenly became very interested in talking. Emperor Junho Han addressed the galaxy from Earth, his message broadcast on every frequency to every world. We did not return seeking revenge. We returned to reclaim what was stolen from us: our freedom, our dignity, and our place among the stars. The Council took those things from us out of fear. We will not make the same mistake. Any species that wishes to live in peace will find humanity to be a fair and just neighbor. Any species that chooses war will learn why the Council was afraid of us. In the Council chambers, the old order began to crumble. Species withdrew their support. Alliances fractured. The speaker resigned in disgrace. In the chaos, humanity offered stability and protection. Many accepted. The galaxy would never be the same. 2 years passed like a storm. When the dust settled, humanity controlled territory that would have taken the old council centuries to conquer. But conquest was the wrong word. Integration was better. Protection was more accurate. Governor Seogen Park stood on the balcony of his administrative center on the world of Talitha, a planet that had been abandoned by the council for over a century. Below him, construction crews worked alongside human engineers and native Talithans to rebuild the infrastructure that had crumbled from neglect. The water treatment plants will be online in 3 weeks, his chief engineer reported. The power grid is already operational. Food production is up 40% from when we arrived. Seogen nodded, watching a group of Talithan children play in a park that hadn't existed 6 months ago. What about the Commonwealth Charter? Have the locals agreed to the terms? 97% approval in the referendum, his aide replied. They understand what we're offering: rights, protection, technology, and infrastructure in exchange for loyalty and contributing to collective defense. After the council left them to starve, it's not a hard choice. The Commonwealth Charter was humanity's governing document for non-human worlds. It guaranteed individual rights, democratic representation, and economic opportunity to all sapient beings under human protection. But it also demanded something in return: allegiance to the new order and participation in its defense. Some called it enlightened governance. Others called it empire by a prettier name. Both were right. On Earth, in the Imperial Senate chamber that now housed representatives from over 200 species, debates raged about the direction of human expansion. The loudest voice of opposition belonged to Narration, a human philosopher and activist who had become the face of internal resistance. "We're becoming what we hated," Nari argued before a packed chamber. "The Council controlled the galaxy through superior force and technological monopoly. Now we're doing the same thing. We've replaced one empire with another." Senator Ji-Won Park, descendant of the famous admiral, responded. "The difference is that we're not denying anyone the right to develop. We're not suppressing technology or keeping species trapped in stagnation. We're offering partnership, not domination." "Partnership implies choice," Nari shot back. "How much choice does a species have when the alternative is being left defenseless in a galaxy we've destabilized? We broke the old order. Now we're forcing everyone to join our new one or face chaos." Emperor Junho Han watched the debate from his private chamber. Nari's song troubled him, not because she was wrong, but because she might be right. Humanity had sworn never to be victims again, but in ensuring that, had they become oppressors? He made a decision that surprised everyone. He invited Nari to a private meeting. They met in a simple room, no guards, no recording devices. Just 2 humans talking about the fate of the galaxy. "You're right to question what we're doing," Junho said. "I lose sleep over it. But I also remember the stories my grandmother told me about the evacuation. About families torn apart. About humans dying of starvation on ships because we couldn't produce enough food for everyone fleeing the colonies. The Council did that to us because they were afraid. I will never let humanity be that vulnerable again." "I understand the fear," Nari replied. "But fear is what drove the Council to imprison us. If we act from the same fear, we become them." "Then help me find a better way," Junho said. "Join my government. Become the voice of conscience that keeps us honest. I need someone who will tell me when we've gone too far." Nari studied him carefully. "You're serious?" "Completely." "I'm creating a position. Chief Ethics Officer. You'll have the power to review any policy, any military action, any decision I make. You can veto anything you believe violates our principles. You'll answer only to the Imperial Senate." "That's too much power to give someone who opposes you." "That's exactly why it has to be you," Junho said. "I need opposition. We all do. The moment we stop questioning ourselves is the moment we become the Council." Nari accepted. Her faction, the Free Stars Alliance, became the official opposition within the government rather than rebels outside it. It was a compromise, but it was also a recognition that humanity needed dissent to remain human. While humanity built its new order, the remnants of the old council fled deeper into the galaxy. They regrouped at the galactic core, where the oldest and most powerful civilizations dwelled. Species that had ruled when humanity's ancestors were still living in caves. The Luminar were beings of pure energy, ancient beyond measure. The Nexari were a hive mind spanning 1,000,000 worlds. The Infinite Array was a machine intelligence that had calculated the movement of stars for eons. These were the powers that had allowed the younger council species to exist at all. And now they were angry. A messenger arrived at the edge of human space, a small probe carrying a simple message. It was addressed to Emperor Junho Han, and it came from the galactic core. "You have disrupted the order that has maintained peace for 100,000 years. You have shown younger species that rebellion is possible. You have demonstrated that the Council's authority was an illusion. For this, you will answer to powers far older than your species' entire existence. We are coming." Admiral Yunji Quan reviewed the probe's data with her tactical team. "We knew this was coming. The core species were always going to respond eventually. How long do we have?" "Unknown," Commander Tajin replied. "They move slowly, but when they move, entire fleets disappear. There are legends about the last time they fought a war. Half the spiral arm was sterilized. Legends or facts? With them, it's hard to tell the difference." Emperor Junho called an emergency session of the Imperial Senate. Representatives from 200 species gathered, many of them terrified. They had joined humanity thinking they were backing the strongest power in the galaxy. Now they learned there were stronger powers that humanity had awakened. "We face our greatest test," Junho told them. "The core species are mobilizing against us. They will not negotiate. They will not show mercy. They see us as a disease that must be removed from the galaxy." "Then we're doomed," a Dolmec senator said quietly. "No species has ever survived a war with the core." "No species has ever been humanity," Junho replied. "We've been underestimated before. We've been declared extinct before. We survived. We adapted. We overcame. And we'll do it again." Nari Song stood up. "But at what cost? How many will die in this war? How much of the galaxy will burn?" "As much as necessary," Junho said grimly. "And as little as possible. We didn't start this. The Council created this situation when they imprisoned us. The core species are perpetuating it by refusing to accept change. We're going to finish it." Across human space, the military mobilized. Shipyards went into overdrive. Research teams worked around the clock on new weapons and defenses. Every human and allied world prepared for a war that would decide the fate of the entire galaxy. In her laboratory, Dr. Jion Yu was working on something that might give them a chance. It was dangerous, possibly insane, and absolutely necessary. She called it the collective mind, and it would change what it meant to be human. The Luminar arrived first, and they did not announce themselves with words. The star system of Arcturus, home to 3 billion humans and allied species, simply vanished from all sensors. One moment it existed. The next, There was nothing but empty space where a sun and 6 planets had been. Marshal Dong-Yun Lee stared at the impossible readings from his command ship. "Get me a scan of the Arcturus system. Something's wrong with our instruments." "Sir, the instruments are fine," his science officer replied, his voice shaking. "The system is gone. The star, the planets, all 3 billion inhabitants, gone." "That's impossible. Stars don't just disappear." "The Luminar converted it to pure energy," a new voice said. Dr. Ji-Yeon Yu had come to the bridge, her face pale but determined. "They're energy beings. They can manipulate matter at the fundamental level. They turned an entire star system into fuel for their war machine." Dong-Yun felt sick. 3 billion lives erased in an instant. "How do we fight something that can do that?" "Very carefully," Ji-Yeon replied. "And with technology they've never encountered before." The core war had begun, and it was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The Luminar moved through space like living solar flares, their touch converting matter to energy. The Nexari deployed nanoswarms that consumed entire fleets, breaking them down into raw materials and rebuilding them as Nexari weapons. The Infinite Array predicted every human tactic before it was implemented, countering strategies that hadn't even been deployed yet. In the first year, humanity lost 40 colonies. In the second year, they lost 70 more. Allied species began to withdraw, convinced that fighting the core was suicide. The Commonwealth started to fracture. Admiral Eun-ji Kwon fought a desperate defensive campaign, trading space for time. She evacuated populations ahead of core advances, destroyed infrastructure to deny resources to the enemy, and accepted losses that would have broken any previous human commander. "We can't win this war conventionally," she reported to Emperor Junho. "Every advantage we have, the array predicts and counters. The Luminar are too powerful to engage directly. The Nexari adapt faster than we can develop new weapons. We need something revolutionary." That something was Dr. Ji-Yeon Yu's collective mind project. In a hidden facility on Europa, the same moon where Dr. Hyun Kim had once unraveled the barrier's secrets, Ji-Yeon prepared for the most dangerous experiment in human history. She had developed a neural network that could link thousands, possibly millions, of human minds into a single Gestalt consciousness. "The theory is sound," she explained to a committee that included Emperor Junho and Nari Song. "Individual human brains can't match the Infinite Array's processing power. But if we link enough minds together, we create something greater than the sum of its parts. A consciousness that can think faster, predict deeper, and adapt quicker than any individual or machine." "At what cost?" Nari demanded. "What happens to the individuals who join this collective? Do they lose themselves?" "They retain their individuality when disconnected," Ji-Yeon said. "But while linked, yes, they become part of something larger. They'll experience thoughts and memories that aren't their own. It will be uncomfortable, possibly traumatic, but it might save us." "You're asking people to give up their humanity," Nari said. "I'm asking them to expand it," Ji-Yeon replied. "And I'm asking for volunteers only. No conscription, no forced participation." Emperor Junho made the announcement himself. "We need volunteers for a project that might turn the tide of this war. It's dangerous. It's experimental. It will change you. But it might save the galaxy. We need 100,000 people willing to risk everything." Within a week, 5 million humans had volunteered. Captain Minseo Choi was chosen as the first core node, the central consciousness around which the collective mind would form. She was a veteran of the Kepler Junction battle, a neural interface pilot with exceptional mental discipline. "Are you ready?" Ji-Yeon asked as Minseo sat in the linking chair, surrounded by arrays of quantum processors and neural transmitters. "No," Minseo admitted. "But let's do it anyway." The activation was gradual. First, 10 minds linked to Minseo's, then 100, then 1,000. With each addition, the collective mind grew stronger, more complex, more aware. Minseo's individual thoughts became part of a vast ocean of consciousness. When all 100,000 volunteers were linked, something new existed in the universe. It was human, but also more than human. It could think 1,000,000 thoughts simultaneously. It could see patterns across timescales that would take individual humans years to process. It could predict outcomes based on variables no single mind could track. Most importantly, it could match the infinite array. The first test came at the Battle of Rigel. The array had positioned a massive Nexari fleet to ambush human reinforcements. Every conventional tactical analysis showed the same result. Humanity would walk into a trap and be annihilated. But the collective mind saw deeper. It analyzed the array's positioning, its resource allocation, its probable secondary and tertiary strategies. It found the pattern in the array's thinking, the mathematical elegance that made its predictions so accurate. And then it broke that pattern. The human fleet divided in ways that made no tactical sense. Ships moved to positions that seemed strategically worthless. The array, confused by actions that violated all military logic, hesitated for the first time in its existence. In that moment of hesitation, the collective mind struck. Human forces appeared from angles the array hadn't considered because they seemed impossible. The Nexari fleet, positioned to counter rational tactics, found itself out of position against irrational ones. The battle was won in 3 hours. The infinite array retreated, for the first time experiencing uncertainty. With the collective mind operational, humanity began to turn the tide. Against the Luminar, they developed resonance weapons that disrupted energy patterns. Against the Nexari, they deployed counter-swarms programmed by the collective mind to evolve faster than Nexari adaptation. Against the infinite array, they employed chaos theory and truly random actions that couldn't be predicted. But the cost was terrible. The collective mind required constant volunteers. Participants could only stay linked for weeks before the strain became dangerous. Captain Minseo Choi remained as the core node, her individual identity slowly fading as she became more collective than individual. Nari Song visited Minseo in the facility during a brief disconnection period. "How are you?" Minseo smiled, but her eyes were distant. "I'm we. I'm them. I'm everyone who's ever been linked. When I disconnect, I feel incomplete, like I'm missing parts of myself." "Then stop," Nari urged. "You've done enough." "I can't," Minseo said. "The collective needs a stable core. If I leave, it might collapse, and we're so close to winning. I can feel it. We all can." The final battle came at the galactic core itself. Marshal Dong-Yun Lee led a fleet of 10,000 ships against the combined might of all 3 core species. It was humanity's largest military operation ever undertaken. The collective mind coordinated everything, processing data from millions of sensors, predicting enemy movements, and adapting strategies in real time. Human pilots linked to the network moved as one, executing maneuvers so complex that only a Gestalt consciousness could coordinate them. The battle raged for 5 months. Entire sectors of space became killing fields. Stars died. Planets were reduced to rubble. The Luminar threw everything they had at humanity. The Nexari deployed swarms that blotted out the stars. The infinite array calculated 1,000 scenarios per second, searching for the combination that would lead to human defeat. But the collective mind was learning. It absorbed every attack pattern, every strategy, every tactic, and slowly, impossibly, it began to understand how the core species thought. When understanding came, victory followed. The Luminar sued for peace when humanity demonstrated they could disrupt energy patterns on a stellar scale. The Nexari halted their advance when counter-swarms consumed their production facilities. The infinite array simply stopped fighting when it calculated that continued warfare would result in mutual annihilation with no victor. The war was over. Humanity had survived. The Treaty of Terra was signed in the same hall where humanity had once gathered after their exile, now 507 years later. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy assembled on Earth to witness the birth of a new order. Emperor Junho Han, now 70 years old but kept vital by advanced medical technology, addressed the gathering. "We did not win this war to become conquerors. We fought to ensure that no species would ever again be imprisoned, dismissed, or destroyed simply for being different. The old council failed because it ruled through fear and control. We will succeed by ruling through partnership and mutual respect." The Luminar Prime, a being of condensed light that hurt to look at directly, spoke next. Its voice sounded like solar winds. "We underestimated you. We thought you were young, reckless, violent. We were right, but we failed to understand that those qualities properly directed become strength, courage, and the will to survive. We acknowledge our error. We offer our knowledge freely." The Nexari Central Mind, speaking through a million voices in perfect unison, added, "We consumed and adapted for 10 million years, believing ourselves the pinnacle of evolution. You taught us that innovation matters more than adaptation. We join your empire not as subjects, but as students." The infinite arrays message was displayed as pure mathematics on holographic screens. When translated, it said simply, "We calculated the probability of this moment. It was 0.001%. You achieved the impossible. We acknowledge your superiority in the only metric that matters. You survived when all predictions said you would fail. We will serve this new order." Chancellor Yejin Huang, appointed to oversee the integration of alien species into the new imperial structure, presented the framework for what would be called the Galactic Empire. It was nothing like the old council. Every species, regardless of size or power, held a seat in the Imperial Senate. Technology sharing was mandatory, ensuring no species would stagnate as the Council had enforced. Worlds could govern themselves however they wished, as long as they upheld basic rights for all sapient beings. Military service was voluntary but encouraged, with humans and aliens serving together in integrated fleets. Most importantly, the Empire was designed to evolve. Every 50 years, a constitutional convention would be held where any species could propose changes to the governing structure. The Empire would never be perfect, but it would always be trying to improve. "We're not building a permanent structure," Yejin explained. "We're building a process, a way for thousands of different species to work together, argue, compromise, and find solutions that benefit everyone. It won't always be peaceful. It won't always be fair, but it will be alive and growing." The former council species, those that had voted to exile humanity, faced their own reckoning. Some, like the Vren, accepted their reduced status quietly. Others, like the Dolmec, tried to maintain their pride while adapting to the new reality. Nari Song, now serving as Grand Ethicist of the Empire, proposed the Memorial Worlds Initiative. 10 star systems that had been devastated during the wars would be restored and preserved as nature reserves. On each one, monuments would be built, telling the story of humanity's exile and return. "We need to remember what was done to us," Nari told the Senate. "Not for revenge, but so we never do the same to others. These memorial worlds will be living reminders that power without wisdom leads to injustice, and that injustice always carries consequences." The motto she proposed was adopted unanimously: "Never again," not just for humanity, but for all species under imperial protection. The collective mind faced a difficult decision. Captain Minseo Choi had served as the core node for 5 years during the war. Her individual identity was nearly gone, subsumed into the Gestalt consciousness. Dr. Ji-Yeon Yu met with her one final time before the final disconnection. "We can maintain the collective," Ji-Yeon said gently. "Keep it active as a strategic resource for the Empire. but you've sacrificed enough. It's time to let you go." Minseo, or what remained of her, smiled. "I am we. We are humanity's future. We are the bridge between individual brilliance and collective wisdom. We choose to remain." But Jiyeon had prepared for this answer. "Then we choose for you. The collective will be preserved but dormant. We'll only activate it in times of extreme crisis. You deserve to be yourself again." When they disconnected Minseo for the last time, she collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden silence in her mind. She wept for hours, grieving for the 100,000 voices she'd carried. But slowly, over months of therapy and recovery, Minseo Choi became an individual again. Changed, certainly, haunted by memories of being more than herself, but alive and human. The infinite array, surprisingly, offered to join with the dormant collective mind, creating a hybrid consciousness that could guide imperial strategy without requiring human sacrifice. It was an unprecedented merger of organic and artificial intelligence, and it became one of the Empire's greatest assets. Admiral Ji-won Park, the original exile survivor who had commanded humanity's defense fleet 500 years ago, was over 540 years old, kept alive through technology that had advanced far beyond even her imagination. She stood at the edge of the Sol system, where the barrier had once existed, watching a memorial ceremony broadcast across the entire empire. A young reporter, a Vren with carefully groomed mandibles, approached her. "Admiral Park, you lived through the exile. You saw humanity at its lowest point. What do you think about what we've become?" Ji-won considered the question carefully. "I think we proved that adversity can either break you or forge you into something stronger. The Council tried to break us. Instead, they gave us purpose. They united us. They forced us to become better than we ever would have been if they'd left us alone. I don't forgive them for what they did. But I understand that without that injustice, we might never have achieved this. Do you think the Empire will last?" "Nothing lasts forever," Ji-won said. "But I think we've built something that can adapt and change with the times. The old Council lasted 100,000 years by preventing change. I think we can last even longer by embracing it." In the Grand Senate chamber, Emperor Junho Han prepared to step down. He had served for 20 years, longer than any democratic leader had a right to. The imperial charter limited terms to prevent the concentration of power. His successor, elected by the Senate, would be Yejin Huang, the first non-military leader to hold the position. "We've come far," Junho said in his farewell address, "from prisoners in our own star system to leaders of a galactic empire. But leadership is not ownership. We don't own this galaxy. We're simply the ones strong enough to protect it and wise enough to know that protection must come with justice. Never forget that every species we welcome into the Empire was once like us, struggling, hoping, trying to survive in a universe that doesn't care whether they live or die. We care. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us worthy of this responsibility." The speech was broadcast to every inhabited world in the Empire, translated into 10,000 languages, received by trillions of beings. Not all of them liked humanity. Not all of them agreed with the imperial system. But they all understood that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. 5 years after the Treaty of Terra, a probe detected signals from beyond the galactic rim. Another galaxy, another collection of civilizations, was reaching out across the void between galaxies. First contact with beings who had never heard of humanity, the Council, or the old wars that had shaped the new order. The Imperial Senate convened to discuss how to respond. Some species urged caution, others suggested military preparation. A few even proposed preemptive strikes to establish dominance. Chancellor Yejin Huang let them argue for 3 days before calling for silence. Humanity was once judged and found wanting by those who didn't understand us. We were feared, imprisoned, and nearly destroyed because other species decided we were too dangerous to exist among them. We will not make that same mistake with these new civilizations. Then what do we do? The Dolmec senator asked. We greet them as equals, Yejin said simply. We offer friendship first, knowledge second, and protection if needed. We show them that there's a better way than the cycle of fear and domination that nearly destroyed this galaxy. Narration stood to support the motion. We broke the cycle of banishment. We proved that forgiveness and partnership are stronger than revenge. Let that be our legacy. Let that be what we offer to every new species we meet. The vote was unanimous. A response was prepared, carried by the fastest ships in the Empire, crewed by both humans and aliens working together. The message was simple. We are the Galactic Empire. We come in peace. We offer friendship. We welcome you to the community of sapient species. You are not alone in the universe. You never have to be afraid again. As the message ships departed, Admiral Jiwon Park watched from her retirement home on Mars. She was tired. She had lived through 5 centuries of human history, from exile to empire. But she was content. Humanity had been banished by the galaxy, declared unfit to exist among the stars. They had risen from that exile not just to survive, but to lead, not through the fear and control that had imprisoned them, but through strength tempered by wisdom, power balanced by justice. The galaxy had tried to cage humanity. Instead, they had unleashed something the universe desperately needed, a species that remembered what it felt like to be rejected and chose to ensure no one else would ever suffer the same fate. The age of banishment was over. The age of equals had begun, and humanity, once dismissed as primitives, stood at the center of it all, not as masters, but as guardians of a better future.